Our world is known. Our path is clear. These are the stories we tell ourselves when we are in the dark, when we cannot see. There is nothing with us except these words of reassurance and our fears. We may eventually find safety and light, but these words are still all that we had from our time in the night of the universe. The truth is, as you might eventually admit, we don't know anything. Everyone wants to claim they possess free will, but what freedom do we have when our life was given to us without our request and can be taken without our permission? Things greater than us exist, moving around us without our consent, without even our knowledge. They threaten us, hurt us, take our lives. They are best seen in the dark. It is in times like these that man decided if he is to have pain and fear from things he cannot stop, nor even see, things like death, then if he survives for some time and even finds happiness, then this is evidence of an equal and opposite force, a protection from that something else. We like to think that these things are benevolent beings or gods who will listen to our pleas. Magnificent monsters may exist to threaten us, but our saints and gods will protect us. They care about us and guide us, just as demons mislead and hurt us. These are the stories we tell ourselves in the dark. But let me ask you, how do you tell gods and demons apart in the dark? 1990's Ankoku Shinwa, or The Dark Myth, is a two-part OVA adaptation of a manga from 1976 by Daijiro Morohoshi. This is actually my second go-around with this story, having read the manga a few years ago. It was a little hard to wrap my head around at the time. The animation, story, and music here, however, is all great, as it takes us along on a story that combines the cosmology of Hinduism and Buddhism with the unfurling of realized cosmic horror. The very basic story of Dark Myth surrounds the fate of a boy who has a strangely compelled interest in ancient Japanese folklore and mythology. What was at first a visit to a museum of artifacts turns into a trip to Japan's sites of ancient mystery, deep into magically booby-trapped caves filled with imprisoned monsters, and, eventually, road trips through all time, space, and reality. It turns out the boy is the central figure in a legend that's quite real, a legend about a singular human that comes every few ages. This human gets to decide the fate of many things. The boy is now approached, chased, and marked by monsters, cultists, demons, gods, a host of holy horrors, and eventually, even the universe itself. All expect him to do great things. All have different feelings about those things. The boy has what many strive to achieve in their life, the power to decide his own fate, and he wants absolutely nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, choosing not to decide is still making a choice. Thus, will the boy choose to leave his home, shed all humanity, explore the universe, and obtain absolute enlightenment? Or will he take absolute power, return to Earth, either as the breaker of the cycle of reincarnation, or the destructor of all life? Or both? Choose the form of the destructor, indeed. This is the Dark Myth. Not dark because of its effects, but dark because we can only see glimpses, pieces of its entirety, here in the night of the universe. I can safely say Ankoku Shinwa, or Dark Myth, is a horror sci-fi fantasy work of staggering complexity. Oh man, this is complicated. It rivals the symbology and depth of anime like Evangelion easily. If you don't even have a very basic understanding of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Japanese myth, and I have a very basic understanding of them, you will become utterly lost connecting the dots in this work. I advise not really worrying about it, just kind of take it in as you would any new mythology that you're introduced to in a story that you're reading, and just go along with the ever-violent flow. Repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax. It does, however, get better with repeat exposure. Like I said, I tried to read the manga before, and I got through it, but I really didn't understand most of it because it's very descriptive in making all of these loose ends of religions meet up. It's interesting though, it's very compelling, but it's very hard to keep track of. It's basically a college course's worth of information in a manga. I don't know, I'm a nerd, I kind of like that kind of stuff, but most people aren't going to be able to get through that. However, the OVA kind of pares down on all that information, and it makes a pretty good, compelling story out of it, so I do recommend it. So, I'm not going to go into specifics, or this will just quickly turn into an encyclopedic video on Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, ancient Japanese myth, even beyond Shintoism, Japanese geography, cosmology, astronomy, religion, fate, science fiction, and horror. Yeah, there's horror in there somewhere. If that sounds like something you think you'd like to see, congratulations! The Dark Myth delivers all of these things in droves. Big droves. Author Daijiro Morohoshi is clearly very studied and has woven a conspiracy that aligns similarities between all of the mentioned religions. He goes further to say that religion is not an allegory about how to live your best life. Oh no. No. The Dark Myth screams that religion is a half-remembered, babbling survival guide for the apocalypse. It warns that the beings spoken about in myths are real. They are super violent monsters who live in spaces and dimensions beyond our own. And they're coming to visit. And they are going to absolutely ravage the earth, as they have before, and will do again, and again, and again. Yeah. Basically, you as a mortal have no chance of coming out of this sane, if you even survive. However, you might obtain immortality in studying and serving the dark gods, or you might be turned into a horrible little troll that feasts on living flesh, or both. If you're lucky, you might get to preserve your body in a stone egg for centuries of stasis, just to come out and realize the beings that you were trying to escape from are rolling back into town. Don't you hate when that happens? Does any of this sound familiar to you? Well, it should if you're a fan of 1 HP Lovecraft. This is exactly what the Dark Myth is, either on purpose or by chance. It's a Lovecraftian story. People are finding the truth hidden at the heart of a local myth, which somehow predicts the alignment of the heavens, the existence of horrible creatures, our place in the impossible, and the coming end of all life as we know it, at the hands, swords, hooves, or tentacles of incredibly powerful beings. This story exudes the sort of world building Lovecraft loved, and I'm sure he would have been keenly interested in this work. I myself quite enjoyed it. It's like reading a new Lovecraft story with a completely new set of legends, myths, beings, monsters, gods, and rules. It's somehow familiar and satisfying, yet it's completely different. However, this is definitely a Lovecraftian work by the nature of its motion. That said, I don't want to scare you off from seeing Dark Myth. Rather, I want you to see it and let it frighten you. Whatever your background or taste, there's a lot to enjoy in the Dark Myth. The animation is fantastic. The landscapes and imagery are trippy like your Trapper Keeper from the 90s at school. And the horror genres covered within it range from simple monsters to existential dread, gore, body horror, and beyond. There's a lot of familiar stuff here, but I have rarely encountered something that gathers all of these elements together like this and makes a competent story out of it. Author Morohoshi stated that when you comprehend the entire story of the Dark Myth, it becomes something very different than what it seems to immediately be. In the Dark Myth's attempts to connect the dots between religion, myth, and fear, and secret truth, the story loses, or perhaps purposely sheds, all those necessary details we, as humans, need in our fiction to have a happy ending. Rather than the familiar hero with 1,000 faces, venturing willingly into the dark to return with gifts for mankind, as Campbell summarizes with the hero's journey theory of monomyths. In the Dark Myth, we instead see the man with 1,000 legs, dragged into the abyss, returning with the darkness in tow, preparing to mutate humanity into something alien or destroy it outright. This is not the making of a hero. This is the making of something entirely different. Damn your expectations. I am not what you expect. I am what ends you. The story seems to be saying. Perhaps the effect this story has is what Lovecraft meant when he wrote, and I quote, "The true weird tale has something, a certain atmosphere of breathlessness and unexplainable dread of outer, unknown forces. A malign and particular suspension, or defeat of those fixed laws of nature, which are our only safeguard against the assaults of chaos and the demons of unplumbed space. Perhaps our gods and demons are two sides of the same cosmic coin. Perhaps there's no guiding force at all. Maybe we're just insects, wondering if the passing galactic animal is friend or foe, and the animal doesn't even know we exist. Maybe it's all arbitrary. What we can do is choose what we watch. So remember, life sucks, but your movies don't have to.
All of these things are designed to frighten a monkey.